and welcome to the Uncommon Drops nightly news drop. Here, with my boy Matt.
Yo,
All right, and of course, this is AJ hosting these news drops for you each night, or we try to do each night. But this one will be a special one that we're kind of going to dedicate specifically to Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was a game that everyone was looking forward to see more of for E3 2018. We got a nice trailer at the end of the Microsoft conference. It was pretty hype. We got our first look at the world, the characters, just the overall feel of the game. And of course, it looks amazing as you would expect, but no gameplay for us. But game journalists did get a chance to see behind closed doors, of course, because companies love to do that. Behind closed doors, like 45-minute gameplay demo, and IGN, of course, is one of those media outlets in attendance, and they put out a nice little article that gave a basically like a bulleted breakdown of some of the key points that they saw from this live demo, and we thought it'd be cool to walk through these and kind of give you our reaction to it and what we think, and then of course leave it open to you guys to see what you guys think about it. So, well, you ready, Matt? You ready to get started? Talk
yeah,
about some Cyberpunk.
ready to talk about
All right,
this.
let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. So right off the bat, man, the first thing that pretty much everybody saw, and it's kind of taking over social media, is that freaking Cyberpunk is a first-person RPG. Now, my first reaction to this was like pretty hype, just because I like first person. But then, maybe after I kind of thought about it some more, I'm like, I can kind of see why it's not so great. So I kind of want to get just your initial take on that. Like, how did you feel hearing that, and then kind of how do you feel about it overall? Do you think that knocks your interest down a little bit?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this in text messages earlier, but yeah, I'm disappointed. They can make whatever game they want. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I guess I really enjoyed The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 3. Like I beat Witcher 2. I didn't beat Witcher 3, but I did a lot of time into it, so I got used to their style of play, and I really liked that.
Hmm.
So I kind of expected something similar to Cyberpunk. And then, like even just looking at this trailer now, I mean, you see people like beating each other up. They're like they have a there's a lot of physical just hand-to-hand combat you see. I mean, I guess there was a clip there with a bunch of guns in a car. Um so I was kind of I was hoping, not expecting, I was hoping that it'd be like a third-person
Yeah.
brawler, and then you
Mm,
know
yeah.
that's kind of what I was hoping for. Hearing that it's first person though, that kind of takes that out of the way. Like it probably won't be as melee focused. It'll be gunplay focused. And yeah, I've been losing interest in single player shooting games. I think the last one that I spent a good amount of time in, I don't even know if you'd consider it, but No Man's Sky was the last FPS game I put like a considerable amount of time into.
Hmm.
That was single player. But if we're talking like a story mode single player, I can't even remember the last one I played.
Dang. Yeah. So with since like you said, you don't really play a lot of single player narrative focused FPS games. So I could see how hearing that news is kind of like, dang, especially just because we're so used to them making third person action games that it's just that alone just makes it like this extra shock, like, oh shit, like, they're going to new territory here. But I mean, I definitely understand like where you're coming from a little bit, just because it basically takes away like the potential for that brawler piece, because I mean, essentially it could have been both, right? Like it could have
Yeah.
had that, ability focused and the gun focused, and on top of that had this like combat system as well. They could have had all those things, and then when you kind of narrow it down to first person, you kind of lose that brawler aspect. I mean, you can definitely do it a la Skyrim, but it won't have that same feeling as when you can kind of, see the whole character and do some beatdown. So I feel you.
Yeah, and
Um,
I had mentioned earlier too that like I played Doom. I played about an hour of it and I put it down because I personally just could not get into it. And then I tried
oh
playing
man, I love
Wolfenstein
Doom.
and I could not get into it. And I really, I loved Doom when I was little, and I really enjoyed the story beats of it. And I liked the tone of it. I thought it was really cool, but that the gunplay part of it just was not interesting to me. And I think that's just because I played so many of those games over the years. I'm like looking for something different. I guess I am
Yeah.
burnt out on that industry, kind of like how we had talked earlier or a while ago about how I've gotten burnt out of survival games. in general. Like the battle royales are interesting to me, and I'm willing to try them out. But like just a generic survival game, I have zero interest in.
I can feel you on that. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely played our fair share of first-person shooters, so I definitely can't blame you for that. We've sunk some hours in, but man, I love Doom, man. Like Doom is exactly what I need sometimes, right? Is jump into a game and because Doom doesn't even really have anything. Like it's literally just fast-paced gunplay, like just really well done and perfected in its simple form. And that's what's so appealing about it for me. It's just that raw, just like I'm going in here, I'm a badass, I'm about to fucking just wreck, shoot everything, kill everything. And like so it's like a good stress reliever after work, that kind of thing. But I love Doom, man, and I and from what I'm reading too, and this is something I think they get into later, is it seems like as far as the first person RPG aspect goes and the shooting, and I think most people said this, it feels more like a Borderlands. It's like in between a Borderlands and a Deus Ex as far as like the speed and ability usage. So I, I would think, especially with it being CD Projekt Red, that the abilities would be very fluid and mixed well with the gunplay, kind of like how in The Witcher the swordplay and the abilities mix together pretty well. Uh, so I think that it'll be more interesting than just like a pure first-person shooter, like a Doom would be and a Wolfenstein would be. So maybe that you might find this to be the new like drawing for first person again, right? Like this might be the game that kicks you back into that genre. It's like, okay, like first person, like I'm excited about it again, because they found the right mixture of ability usage and gunplay to not make it feel uninteresting, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I will keep an eye on it, and see how things progress. But then, like when I'm thinking about what this gameplay is going to look like, I just think of those games from the mid 2000s that were those sci-fi shooters, and none of those pulled me even into a buy.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that the Witcher series is perfect. The combat could have definitely used a little bit of work, and especially towards the middle of the third one, it felt like the story kind of started slowing down in a way that didn't appeal to me.
Yeah.
That's actually why I stopped playing it. I just got tired of the city missions, and I don't remember the name of the town or the city. But I mean, I want to like this so bad, and hearing the first person stuff just hurt me so much. Like my first reaction was,
Man.
"Fuck!" Like that was the first thing I thought when I read that. I was like, "Fuck."
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember this. I sent you guys that text, and your first thing was, "Dang, that sucks." Oh man, but yeah. So, well, I guess a good thing is, yeah, CD Projekt Red actually said on their Twitter they emphasize the fact that this is a first-person RPG and not a first-person shooter. So unlike Doom, where you spend majority of the game, even in cinematic scenes, in first person, this game will switch between first person and third person in cinematics. So when you go into a dialogue scene, like classic Witcher style, when you're chatting and choosing dialogue options, it will be from third person, so you will see your character, and also just in cinematics in general. And also when you drive the car, you can switch between first and third person. So it won't be like you're always in first person, even in cinematics. So that's kind of cool. But as far as actually playing the game and fucking some stuff up, that part will be first person only. Um, so moving forward here, kind of just going across some other bullet points. Of course, we learned uh, the main character you're playing as a character named V. You could be male or female. That's pretty cool. It's up to you. Then of course you could pick stats. So we've got stats: strength, constitution, intelligence, reflexes, tech, and cool. And sorry, I got some action going on in my background here.
You said what was the last one? You said cool.
Yeah, and cool. So
Okay.
apparently these stats are stats from, I believe, a Cyberpunk 2020 board game, and now from what I read with this demo, and I think they also get into this later on in this bullet point article, is that there is like a street cred to this game. So apparently, like certain areas will be like you can't enter certain areas because you don't have enough street cred or something like that. I'm assuming that would be sort of like gang or faction related. And they said things like, you could put on like a certain type of jacket, and that might increase your street cred to a certain percentage or something like that. So maybe that cool kind of applies to that. And maybe the cool set is also like you know, like also a dialogue option too. Maybe the cool set's a certain level you can approach different, factions in a certain way or different conversation in a certain way. Um, but I am not 100% sure. I'm just assuming that that's what the cool stat could be. But those are the six stats that will be uh, upgradable. And the good thing about it is it's not like traditional RPGs where you pick a class in the beginning and you're stuck to that. Like, oh, I'm going to pick Ranger and you're stuck to that. It's very much like you're starting deprived, basically, and then you can kind of mold your character to be whatever you want. Big fan of that style of, class upgrade. All right.
Yeah, I
Now let's see what else
just
we
looked
got
it
here.
up. Yeah,
Oh, you
Cyberpunk
did? Okay.
2020 is a classic role playing game. Let's see if it says
Yeah.
anything about when it was released. It is not on this website I found. However, you can buy it from Talsorianstore.com for $30.
And
What
who
is that?
do you know who made that? What does it say?
Are Talsorian Games?
No, I'm not familiar. That's
Yep.
interesting though. I didn't even know it was a board game
I
that they
didn't
based it
either. I
off
thought it
of.
was an original IP. Led the explosive entry of the dark
Mhm.
future genre into role playing in 1987 and has continued to break new ground ever since it's moved to its third edition.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I guess it was late 80s, early 90s that this was big. So, yeah, I did not even know that.
Oh man, that's kind of interesting. Hmm. Well, cool. Well, yeah. So if you are a fan of of the tabletop game, then those same stats will be here in this game. So that's pretty cool for the fans of that game. I'm sure that they'll be excited about that. I'm not familiar, but good to know. Uh, the article goes on to talk about kind of like your home base. Apparently, your home base will, of course, be your apartment, and you can gain more and different styles of apartments throughout the game. One cool little feature they mentioned was that the clothes and the weapons you get will sort of fill up in your apartment, which is kind of cool. But of course, it does say you don't have to go back to the home base to swap anything. You'll still be able to swap stuff on the go. Um, the article goes on to talk about, uh, of course, I mentioned, being able to drive the car in first or third person. They mentioned kind of like a cool UI thing. If you're driving in first person, the UI will kind of have a digital flow on the windshield. Thought that was kind of cool. A little futuristic cyberpunk type stuff.
Like having a HUD
And
on the windshield itself, is that what you're saying?
yep, so have a
Okay.
HUD on the
All right.
windshield. So I don't know if you ever seen like the I think a lot of cars do this now, but I'm just gonna use BMW because I know for sure and I've experienced it myself. But BMWs have like, and other car brands do this too now, but they like project like your miles per hour and things like that. This is pretty slick, but I'm sure this version will be a lot more, uh, enhanced and futuristic. But it'll look really cool. I'm sure having like health bar or like stats going across the windshield. It'd be even more cool if they had like other little things that popped up like video or things going on in the city. Like that'd be kind of cool to create that immersion in the game.
Yeah, I was just looking up to see what it looks like. I'm seeing a few different things. That's pretty cool, though. Yeah, that's a neat little feature to have. I wouldn't even think about having. Wouldn't even have thought about putting that in the game like that. So that's pretty cool.
All right. Now check this out. Now this I don't think I've seen in the game before. This is pretty dope. They also said that there is driving combat, and the way this works is the AI in your car will take over steering, and you can like lean out windows and
Hmm.
shoot at enemies while you're driving.
Okay.
That's pretty cool. Now, what would be sick is if you can like choose your like choose a waypoint, and on the way there you get into some combat engagements, and that car just keeps going to that waypoint while you're leaning out the window, like shooting other cars like that. That's pretty cool.
They should borrow the driver's car tech, and that's how your car AI is just learns from you.
Oh yeah, because your driver tower would definitely do some damage out there on the
Oh
roads.
yeah, it'd be like having a second player, just smashing into other cars and all that.
So so that's cool. AI can kind of take over and do its thing. I never heard of a game doing that before, so that's pretty neat. Um, so the next bullet point on here talks about CD Projekt Red stated that this is, of course, a mature experience intended for a mature audience, and they reference this because, sort of like in a GTA way, you can kind of do a lot of romantic things. So you can meet people out in town, or I guess at clubs and things like that. And apparently, this game will also have full frontal nudity for anyone who loves the nudity in Witcher. It'll be full frontal in this, and you can take people home for one night stands. And they apparently they displayed that in the behind closed doors demo of your character meeting or saving some woman, and later on, your character wakes up and obviously something went down. So bringing back and kind of adding on to the romance options that we've seen in The Witcher.
So do you think that means that every character? So does that mean every NPC in the game will, in theory, be
Be
romantable?
able to be romanced.
Yeah.
uh, that would be cool. Now, if they somehow figured out to make every NPC be able to do that with every NPC, that would be nuts. Like that would be on some other level. But
Well, I don't
I'm gonna
remember what game it
assume,
was. I could have sworn there was a game that I had played where you could interact with any NPC, and then once you like started going down the romance path with them, they would go down like a preset romance path, and then like be given like a character name and all that stuff. I can't remember what game that was though. Well, doesn't Skyrim have like any character in the game is able to be romanced?
mm, maybe Skyrim does that. I feel like I
Able?
haven't played enough Skyrim to know.
I don't remember. There's a game I
Fable,
played
does
where
Fable
it,
do
like
that?
once you started romancing the character, they would like their name would change. I could have sworn. I don't remember what game though.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it was Fable. I know Fable had some last name changing, I believe in that game. Uh, but yeah, so I mean, they're bringing that to this game, and it looks like it's going to be potentially a in-depth system. Maybe not the Fable level, but or whatever game that was. But romance is back in this game, just like with The Witcher. Brothels, I don't know if they're in the game, but I'm just going to assume that they are, or in some sort of futuristic capacity like VR or something. I don't know, but that'd be cool.
That'd be pretty funny.
Uh, yeah, yeah. Um, so of course, yeah. So if you don't meet the rated M standards, sorry guys, you can't play the game. Even though I know your moms will probably buy it for you anyway. All right, let's see what we got. Now let's see. So kind of some more bullet points is here talking about like your goal isn't to just only engage with the game world, but with NPCs. So they kind of talk about how like in The Witcher, you can talk to random NPCs and have all these dialogue options and get random missions, and of course that's in this game as well. The game's full of life, and you can go and find random side quests that are interesting to go do. That's one thing I really liked about The Witcher 3. It's sort of how immersive the world felt. You can go find these random missions that actually were interesting and not like fetch quests.
Yeah, I think my favorite Witcher side quest was or my favorite quest line in there wasn't even like a main quest thing. It was one of the side quests, the Bloody Baron, I think is his name. That whole storyline was just super interesting. I was fully engaged. I did it all at one shot.
Oh yeah, that was really good. I know what you're talking about. So moving on here with the article. Of course, talking about the PCs again. And this one talks about what I mentioned earlier with the cool stat. Um, talked about it being an open world and how it opens up more with the street cred value don't know if that's like I don't know how that value works, but apparently there's some sort of street cred, meter or value. And they talk about how you can throw in a specific jacket, and it might raise it by 5%, for example, and it allows you to access new places. Um, and they also mention how completing quests in the world levels up your street cred. So I'm gonna assume that you complete missions or tasks for certain groups or factions or people, and your name gets around. Like, hey V, your character's name is V. Like, man, V's that guy. He did this for me. So that's kind of cool that as you complete requests and people recognize who you are, like it kind of ups your cred. But I kind of want what I want to know, and I don't know if I've seen this anywhere yet, is if like that can hurt you as well. Like if I go do a mission for Johnny over here, like will Billy over here be upset? And like the street cred doesn't work for him. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, so you're wondering if there's a difference between different faction street cred, or there's just like a general street cred for the entire city?
Right, exactly. Like I wonder, like 'cause I think it'd just be weird. Like every time I complete a mission, like my street cred just keeps going up, and like everyone's cool with me. Like you gotta piss someone off at some point.
I I mean, with how in depth they're going to be getting with this game, I assume that you would have your street cred and then your faction rating. I think I've seen other games like handle that. It's like,
Yeah.
well, if you keep doing missions for the thieves, eventually the mages are going to get pissed off at you because you're killing mages, or something like that. I'm sure that there's a separate system for that. It would be, like you said, weird if they just had it all in one thing when everything else in this game seems to be
Right.
so detailed, and or it
Exactly.
seems to be, at least.
Exactly. So hopefully that's in there. Like you said, I can't imagine it not being in there to some extent. So next, the IGN article talks about the UI in the game. So this is cool, and I've noticed a lot of games are doing this now, and I'm a big fan of it, and I know you are too, Matt. But apparently the UI, at least in the demo, and of course it could change before release, but at least in the demo, the UI is extremely minimal. The only thing on the screen is a light compass. I'm just gonna assume it's like all these other games. You have the bar or something like that light compass style, and a small quest log. So that's cool. That's it. Apparently, that was all that was on the UI during, uh, you know, during just casual moving around and stuff like that. Now, it says that the UI expanded when you engaged in combat,
Hmm.
and to the point where like enemies had names, they had health bars, and they also appeared to have like levels. And they also said that some enemies had question marks over their levels, which they weren't really sure, but it could potentially mean that either they're higher level than you, or some they're too high of level, or just something weird is going on there. But how do you feel about hearing that UI news?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think that was one of my favorite features in Dark Souls 3 was that when you're outside of combat, I mean, you can choose to have no HUD, and then when you got into combat, the HUD would
Yep.
come back. So I like that. I like that clean look. What was I was playing something the other day that had like no HUD on it that I thought looked really good. Maybe it was Hellblade.
We also yes, Hellblade has no HUD, and that's a beautiful game.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you take the HUD off, man, and you just see the whole game for what it is, it's incredible. Like you don't realize until you take it off, like how much the HUD covers, some of the beauty of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like we talked about with the Ghost of Tsushima gameplay. Like they showed it with no HUD, and it's like, man, and it looked beautiful. It's like, man, keep the HUD off, or at least have an option to turn it off, so we can really just soak in the beauty of the game. So that's good to hear. That's here for Cyberpunk.
Yeah. Well, that was one of my favorite things in Dead Space was that there was no HUD, and then your health was like on your
Yep.
backpack.
Oh,
And,
good
like,
example. Good example.
there were other ways to show the HUD instead of just having the HUD. And don't get me wrong, I mean, we play Smite. You need full fucking HUD. Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah.
You need full fucking HUD to be able to play that game effectively. But for like a story game, that setting is like the most important thing. That's a way of telling the story. I feel like having
Mhm.
less HUD is better.
Absolutely. Now speaking of combat, they also mentioned, of course, this is an RPG, so there are damage numbers. So when you're shooting and doing abilities, damage numbers will pop up on your screen in RPG fashion. They also talked about just some quick ability that they saw that there's like a bullet time slow down like ability that allows you to slow down time. And this is just this particular article. I know that they've shown more abilities, but this specific article talks about the slow down time ability. I mean, I like when games have it. Hellblade had a slow down ability. I was a big fan of that. Are you a fan of the bullet time, Matt?
Yeah, I think those are good for punching the moments, and we in like you said in Hellblade, like that just makes me feel so powerful for just that little bit.
Yeah.
Like I think it's nice because having the bullet time as opposed to being able to just have that all the time. You can, I don't know, it really punctuates the moments. And we saw in Smash that certain characters in the new version of Smash Ultimate, are going to have like a slow mo effect when they're in 1v1 fights. So I mean, even Nintendo's getting into the whole slow mo thing. So yeah, I like it. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it adds, like I said, adds that punch to it. So cool with me. They talk about abilities later on as well when we get to that. They also started to talk about how, of course, CD Projekt Red was really emphasizing that your choices have consequences, not only in the moment, but in the world at large. So this might go back to what I was talking about earlier, where maybe you do piss off Johnny when you go help Billy, or vice versa. So apparently, choices won't be meaningless like a lot of games now. Sometimes choices will have consequences and will change the world at large. Now, keyword here they put is at large. So we could see whole certain sections or buildings become inaccessible, which would be really cool. Uh, Moving on here, kind of talking about solutions, kind of like solutions to problems depending on your skills. So specifically, they said obstacles have several solutions depending on your skills. For example, apparently in this gameplay demo, V got to a door, but his hacking skill was too low, so he couldn't hack the door. But apparently his engineering skill was high enough, so he can open up a panel nearby and bypass the door. So there's different ways, I guess, to approach problems, breaking the buildings. Maybe you don't have high enough stat to do something specific. You can find a workaround. And I like when games have different options for you to solve different circumstances. So I'm a big fan of that. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think especially in RPGs, you need to have those options available, because there's nothing that'll break the immersion faster than, oh, well, I guess my options are I can't hack into this door, so I have to shoot my way through everything. Having those multiple options, like, oh, well, I'm an engineer, so let me see if I could just break through the door like that in the panel. Like, I think those are good. You need those in an RPG game, because, like I said, it'll break immersion if it doesn't.
Right. Definitely true. And I think I did read this game does have some stealth elements to it if you kind of want to go down the stealth path. So a little bit Deus Ex type stuff there. Moving on here, they talked about an inspection system. So this is cool. So they said there's an inspection system that lets you look super close at items to learn more about lore. So the first thing that comes to my mind with this is Rise of the Tomb Raider, how you can bring up an item and you can kind of rotate it and look at it.
Okay.
I know a lot of games do this now. So, but Tomb Raider was cool because it did have like the lore piece to it. Like it would specifically tell you, hey, this particular piece of treasure has more to it, and you can kind of search that item. And sometimes it would have writing on it that kind of added to the backstory or the lore. So I'm a big fan of the item zoom in. Uh,
Wonder if we lost AJ. His mic cut off all of a sudden. Yeah, but I guess just going off of that tangent.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yep, now I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that, guys. Freaking ripped the cord out here in my excitement. I guess, talking about the item inspection. But yeah, there's an inspection system that lets you inspect items. I'm a big fan of that. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't have any problems with it. I've played enough walking simulators that it's fine as a mechanic. I'm not here or there on it.
All right, cool, cool. So that's another little tidbit. Again, just adding to the detail of the world. Big fan of that. This is a random little tidbit here, but apparently the heal mechanic is an inhaler. So I guess whatever is in the inhaler will heal you up. That's kind of cool and cyberpunky, right?
Yeah, that makes me happy.
Uh, yeah.
Some cosmetic
And this they
representation
kind
in
of
video games.
a good old medic inhaler. But they this is where they kind of mentioned what I was talking about earlier, talking about the gunplay, and this particular person, and this is again this is the IGN article, so someone could say different. I'm just going off of this. They mentioned that the gunplay felt slower than Doom or Borderlands, but faster than Fallout 4, and I think they also mentioned in a different article on IGN Deus Ex. Um, so I guess it's somewhere in between. So it's like not too slow, but not too fast. Maybe it's in that happy space with the gunplay. Now, when you hear that, Matt, what is your first thought? Because you at least liked Borderlands, but how do you feel if it was a little bit slower than Borderlands?
That's I think the big thing will to me that will get me to feel either way about it will be how slow and how hard those bullets hit. Like you say, it's gonna be a little bit slower than Borderlands. I could be okay with that, but I would want each bullet to have a punch. And I know that that's hard to do in RPG because you want to have enemies that are bullet sponges, so that actually getting better weapons makes sense. But that'd be
Now,
my big fear. I don't know. But go ahead.
now it's funny you mentioned a punch, right? So check this out. Again, this is IGN has did two articles, so they did this one, which I guess was kind of like the off the cuff bulleted list of what they saw, just kind of in general. Then they did a more in depth article that talked about like the entire demo in a way. Now, in that bigger article, they did mention that this particular writer was surprised at how much feedback the guns had, how much kick they had, how much, you know, punch they had, how much feedback it had. So that might be what you're looking for,
Okay.
and that might kind of make you happy. Mm. So if anyone ever says they're surprised that a gun had so much punch to it, that's to me that's like a really good thing. That means they might have gotten it really right as far as like the audio and the feel and the sound, the look, like everything is just right about this gun. Like this gun reacts how I would expect it to. So hopefully, um, it'll actually feel like you're hitting the enemy, and that gun is really like shooting in your hands, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. We'll see. That makes me a little bit. That makes me feel a little bit better about the game if they're saying that. So we'll have to see how that actually looks, and we actually see some gameplay for it.
Yep. Uh, yeah. So moving on here, they also talked about seeing some late game abilities, like they mentioned some they described it as a mantis-like blade arm, and I think that this was used a lot, like in stealth sections. This blade arm um, that you can sort of stealth kill with, and I guess do other things with. He also talked about
I think they
wall
might have shown
running. So
that in one of the
apparently,
older teaser trailers from 5 years ago.
oh yeah, yeah, that one android in the street with the blade arm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently that's a late game ability. Also, wall running is some sort of ability as well. So adding to your traversal options. So hopefully it's really fluid. I hope it's not like a slow wall run. Hopefully it feels really good. And of course, I'm sure there's a ton of other abilities uh, that's not in this particular article. Again, there's a way bigger article out there that dives a little bit more deeper into it, but we wanted to give you guys a little bit more condensed version with this one. Um, but of course, it's CD Projekt Red, so it'll have a lot of abilities um, to look at. And lastly, they just talked about a boss fight. See a boss fight in the game, so there will be bosses in the game. Of course, Witcher 3 had, or I'm sure all Witchers had it, but I specifically play Witcher 3, so having those boss fights in there would be cool. I just hope now they mentioned they fought a boss that was a dude in an exoskeleton, which to me is sort of like and they mentioned that I guess during this boss fight they saw the character like sliding in their cars and taking cover and shooting those kind of things. Um, Now, when I hear this, it doesn't really get me as excited because I feel like every futuristic game has that like exoskeleton battle. And it's just that bullet spongy type of battle. So I hope that we see some like weird, like cybernetic type of enemies that have some, you know, I don't know, like some weird mutated features to them that make the fight really interesting. I would hate to just fight these bosses that are just sort of bigger versions of the regular enemies that you fight, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and that's one of the reasons
Mhm.
why I wasn't super excited about Division, because everything I read was,
Right,
the
exactly.
bosses are just guys with bigger health bars.
Yep, exactly. So I really don't want that. If they're gonna have bosses in the game, I'd rather it be like really interesting fights. Or you could do if you can't do that, maybe make the set pieces really interesting. Like maybe it's like a chase, and that is the boss fight. Is this chase in this particular area? I'd be okay with that. But if it's a boss fight, like hopefully it's interesting. Uh, but yeah, so that's the whole article. They're kind of bulleted breakdown. Again, there's a lot more uh, information out there. There's a full breakdown out there, the full 45-minute gameplay demo that really expands on a lot of this information and kind of dives a little bit deeper into exactly what was shown. But this kind of gives you a rough idea of how the game will somewhat feel. This first-person RPG with, the feel and the charm and the atmosphere of a CD Projekt Red game. So I'm pretty excited about it. I really want to see the gameplay. So I'm hoping that before E3 is over this week, that they give us some sort of gameplay. They don't have to show us that whole demo they showed the media behind closed doors, but give us something so people can calm down because a lot of people are really scared after seeing the first person things gameplay. People see like, hey, don't worry, it's first person, but like everything is here that you love about the games that we make, and we make sure to make this game badass. Um, then that'll be really nice. But Matt, what's your final thoughts on hearing a little bit more about CD Project's Red Cyberpunk 2077? And is there anything if you want to add to that, like something that you're still concerned about or that you are excited about, those sorts of things.
I'll keep it short. I was super excited after I saw the trailer, and I was disappointed after I heard the first person news. But I will try to keep an open mind until we see some actual gameplay. I think that'll be what would convince me either way.
Yep, I'm right there with you, man. Except for I do like the first person aspect, but again, I think they'll drop the gameplay, and I think everyone will be happy and super excited. But yeah, that's our podcast for tonight. Our nightly news drop. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next one. And hey, let us know in the comments, like what do you think about the news from the gameplay demo behind closed doors? Are you more excited because it's first person? Are you less excited? Are you looking forward to sort of the atmosphere? All the missions, the abilities. Let us know in the comments what you guys are thinking, and we'll be happy to discuss it with you. But have a good night. We'll see you next time.
All right, thank you. See you next time. All right. Okay, what did you want to play tonight?